Month after month, the Prime Minister has defended his government's decision to scrap winter fuel payments for most pensioners as a necessary measure to help stabilise the UK economy. But it's been a deeply unpopular policy with voters, and today came a partial U-turn. The shift in position was seized upon by rival parties.
As the economy improves, we want to make sure people feel those improvements in their days as their lives go forward. And that is why we want to ensure that as we go forward, more pensioners are eligible for winter fuel payments. As you would expect, Mr. Speaker, we will only make decisions we can afford. That is why we will look at that as part of a fiscal event.
You look at all of them behind him, all of them cheering, when this inevitable U-turn on winter fuel comes, and it will, from a desperate Prime Minister. What will he say to the 348 MPs who went over the top and voted for the winter fuel cut last September? Just like the British public, how can any of them ever trust him again?
Well, we await to see the detail of what the Prime Minister appears to have hinted at today, but it was very short on detail. So rather than waiting for the Labour government to realise the mistake that they've made, it's the Scottish Government, the SNP, that have promised to reintroduce a winter fuel payment for pensioners, a universal winter fuel payment, and we'll get on with delivering that.
So is today's move a sign of a flexible government listening to voters, or evidence of a weak Prime Minister? We spoke to the Times assistant political editor Geraldine Scott and the columnist and former Labour advisor Sonia Sodha. Jerry, so why do you think Starmer made this announcement at Prime Minister's questions today about the fuel payments?
Yeah, well, look, he's been coming under increasing pressure over this, and he got, a pretty rough ride at the PLP, the Parliamentary Labour Party meeting on Monday over it. So it's clear that pressure has been building. We're a week just before recess, before MPs go off to their constituencies for a while, and they're about to really get it in the neck on the doorstep, as they're out doing their constituency work. So you can see why, if he was going to do it, it would be today. But look, it's very, very clear that there's been a lot of unhappiness about this in various sections of the party, not just the kind of usual suspects.
So, Sonia, he's defended this policy for ages, hasn't he? Was what happened today a sign of weakness, or was it smart politics?
It's always smart politics when you've got a policy that is politically damaging and a policy that lots of your MPs are worried about. It's always better to do a U-turn or to have a change of heart than to push on. So in that sense, it was smart politics today. But I think that the reason why lots of Labour MPs will be feeling quite cheesed off about this on the back benches is they've been having to go out and defend this policy for the last 10 months. The negative reaction that we saw to it, the backlash, happened straight away. It was one of the first things that the new Labour government announced after the last election. So Labour MPs will be saying, why were you making us go out and defend this for 10 months? Why couldn't you have had this change of heart earlier? So I think that's where the sort of slightly, that's where the political trickiness comes.
Jerry, Sonia said that many Labour backbenchers have been cheesed off about this policy. How's this move today gone down within government and within the wider party?
Yeah, look, Sonia's dead right. There are going to be many, many Labour MPs who are saying, why didn't you do this earlier? And remember that by-election in Runcorn? They were within 6 votes of winning that. If this had been done before then, could they have taken that seat and held that seat? Maybe so. I think there is an argument, though, that in terms of the timing, well, the political pain has kind of already happened over and over for those 10 months. So you still inflict the political pain on the government, but you now also get the financial pain. So there is a world where this is kind of between a rock and a hard place for the government. And of course, this isn't the only thing that Labour MPs are angry about at the moment. It's not like it was just winter fuel and nothing else. You've got the welfare cuts, you've got the 2-child benefit cap, and these are all things that will keep getting, put pressure on to change.
Jerry says there is, the winter fuel payments wasn't the only thing he was under pressure about. There were other pressures, including the welfare cuts. Do you think he will be forced to make a U-turn or a partial U-turn on any other policies?
I think potentially, I think there is huge discomfort on the Labour backbenches about the disability welfare cuts. And if those cuts on the scale that the government have been talking about go through, that's going to have an impact on disability poverty, but it's also going to have an impact on child poverty, because there are many children who live in households with disabled adults, for example. So there's a lot of consternation on the Labour backbenches about it. And so I think there will be pressure on the government to think about U-turning on some of that as well, particularly because actually I think some MPs will say, well, look, we've shown we can do it on winter fuel payments, so why can't we do it on these other painful policies? The problem is, of course, that you've got the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who's facing some hugely difficult fiscal arithmetic. She doesn't want to borrow anymore, and she's been left a really unenviable inheritance in terms of making the sums add up from the previous government. And so she's either got to put taxes up or find places to cut spending. That's basically the upsum of the fiscal arithmetic, the equation that she's facing. So if they're not going to take this money out of the disability budget, they've also, for example, pledged to put defence spending up. Where is it going to come from? So these are not easy trade-offs at all for the Labour Party. And I think it's why there's so much unhappiness in Labour at the moment, because there isn't a lot of money to go around. They're having to make these difficult decisions, and a lot of MPs are extremely unhappy about them.
Jerry, so this leaves the Chancellor in a really difficult position, doesn't it? Because she's counting on the money from these the welfare reform. I mean, it leaves her in a very, as I say, a very difficult situation.
Yeah, that's right. And look, this is one of the first things, this winter fuel stuff, that Rachel Reeves announced as Chancellor. At the time, she said, if we cannot afford it, we won't do it, which has tried to be her, mantra throughout all the decisions she's made, even when they've been tough, even when they've caused Labour MPs to ask things like, is this what a Labour government should be doing? What are we in government for if we're not kind of, helping the people that we should be helping? So it is really tricky for her, and she is going to come under increasing scrutiny as we get towards the spending review and the next budget on exactly, how she balances the books while still staying on the right side of the party.
And there seems to be tensions within the cabinet as well, doesn't there, Sonia, particularly between the Chancellor and the Deputy Prime Minister?
Absolutely. Well, Angela Rayner is sort of widely seen as being to the left of Rachel Reeves, and it's been reported that she submitted a memo to the Treasury ahead of some of the latest round of fiscal decisions, where she basically made the case for putting up taxes, particularly on the very wealthiest in society, through things, for example, like removing the lifetime limit on pensions, in order to be able to have more money available for stuff like reducing child poverty. So that is speaking to attention not just within the Labour Party, you're right, Rona, but one within the cabinet. There are cabinet ministers who look at the forecast for child poverty. Child poverty was forecast to go up by 400,000 children over this Parliament, and that's before the disability welfare cuts. And they're saying, this absolutely cannot happen on our watch as a Labour government. We've got to find more money to give to low-income parents to bring child poverty rates down. So those tensions are very important.
Yeah, he hasn't got his troubles to seek, has he? We'll have to leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us.